Hello everybody, in this video I thought I would share with you my fountain pen collection. I don't share much of my fountain pen hobby on my channel, just occasionally in my studio vlogs, and you see them get used in like journal spreads and stuff, but even with the smallish amount I share them, I still get quite a lot of people saying to me, oh my goodness Grace, you have made me want a fountain pen. So this video isn't about look at all the things I have. It's more like to give people an idea of kind of what there is out there, especially those people who have said to me, I want a fountain pen, where do I start? Now, I know for some people, especially in the UK, who are roughly the same age as me or older, like we use fountain pens at school, in primary school, and then I've either stopped using them and come back to them later, or, you know, we're vaguely familiar with them. But some other people, it's just like, poof, they don't know a thing. Obviously, I have a fair few pens here, but I don't have all of the pens. A lot of people in the hobby, they will have lots of higher end pens with like gold nibs and everything, and the bigger, more expensive brands. I have two of those higher end pens and that's it. The rest of my collection are much, much cheaper than that. So if you've just stumbled across this channel and like fountain pen collection videos, which are all of the fancy pens, then I'm sorry, but I only have two of those. Everything else is more around the budget end of things. So yeah, as I said, I don't have all of the pens by any means, but it might give those of you who have wanted to get into it like an idea of what there is, and so on and so forth. So yeah, let's just jump in. I've just got all my pens and a couple out of shot as well, using one of my favourite fountain pen friendly papers here. This is the Oxford Campus Refill Pad, which is Oxford Optic paper, which you can also get in any of their campus notebooks and the black and red notebooks. It's not the prettiest paper to look at this way with blue lines and a red margin, but it's very, very fountain pen friendly. So I'm going to start with these guys here to my right because they will probably seem fairly familiar to most of you. These are, for most of them, are the Lamy Safari pen. This was my first Lamy Safari, which I bought in 2014 or 15. I am not 100% sure. I got the white one because I love white anything, and it has lasted really, really, really well. I did originally have a fine nib on it, which lasted for a very long time, and it was still going strong, but I wanted to put a 1.1mm stub nib on this one. The Lamy Safari is a very common beginner pen because they have this sort of triangular or grip section which helps you like hold the pen properly or some stuff. They're a bit of a love-hate thing in the fountain pen world. Loads of people love them, a lot of people hate them. I love them. I like collecting different colours. As you can see, they're not heavy. I hate a heavy pen. They are bigger than my absolute favourite type of pen, but I just really, really like them. You can write with them posted, which means the cap on the end, or unposted, and yeah, they're just brilliant. You can get them from between about £15 to £20, depending on where you get them, depending if they're special editions or not. So yeah, I am just going to do little writing samples with each pen. So as I said, this is the Lamy Safari, I'm going to just put in brackets here, white with the 1.1 stub nib, which is probably not the best nib to show you for the first thing because it's a bit different, I suppose. And just in case anyone is interested, the ink in this pen is Colourverse Cat, which is a shimmering ink, though I don't know how well it's going to show up. For some reason, studio lights and shimmering ink don't actually get on that well. You would think they would, but they don't. So just a side note here about ink for the complete newbies out there. Feel free to skip the next 30 seconds or so if you are not a newbie. But in most pens, I think all the ones you're about to see, apart from one, are going to be cartridge or cartridge converter pens. So cartridges you're probably familiar with, the little plastic cartridges that you just slot in. They've got the ink in, you're ready to go. Cartridge converters are what you can put bottled ink in. You basically dip your nib in your ink and use the converter. Some are twist ones, some are plunge, different types. You'll see a few different ones as we go through. The Lamy ones are twist converters and suck the ink up that way, which is just so much better because you get to use all the different colours of ink, and it is more environmentally friendly as well because you're not throwing away little plastic cartridges. You can refill cartridges if you want to, but I'm trying not to make this too overly complex for those who are more into the beginner side of things. So another Lamy here. Again, it's a Safari. This is the 2017, I think, special edition, which is in the matte charcoal or matte black. It has a medium black nib on it, which you can see there, and I just have a Lamy black cartridge in this one just because I had loads to use up, so I'm just putting black in the black pen for now until I've used it up. Then I'll buy a cartridge converter for it and we'll go from there. These three guys are the 2019 Safari special editions. They basically have a special edition every year. Sometimes it's one colour, like with the matte black or matte charcoal, and other years, well, the past 2 years have been 3 different special editions. So this was the pastel collection. We've got blue macaron, mint glaze and powder rose. I just started off with the blue macaron because I just love this colour. I'm obsessed with it. It's pretty much my favourite colour. And then eventually I succumbed and just bought the other 2 as well. So sometimes I like to match my ink to my pens, which I have done with this one, and other times I don't. What did I say this was? This is the blue macaron. This has a fine nib on it, just their standard steel fine nib. One thing you will hear about Lamy nibs is they can be a bit unpredictable. Some aren't great. I have never had a problem with the Lamy nib, so I don't know if I've just been really lucky. Some of them size wise have been, you know, I feel I've got a nib and it writes more like a medium when it's a fine nib kind of thing, but that also really depends on the ink you're using, so it's a bit Anyway, the ink in here, in case you're interested, is Urban Vert Reseda. Trying to remember how to spell that. The Diamine Soft Mint is a slightly better match for this one, but I have this pretty ink as well. So in the mint glaze, which is the extra fine nib, you'll also hear people say that their extra fine is really, really scratchy. I've had no problems with it whatsoever, but again, I may have just been really, really lucky. This ink is Diamine Meadow. Not an exact match to the mint colour, but I didn't have any green in any of my pens at the time I filled that up. And this one, the powder rose, I have a broad black nib on this one just because I prefer the black nibs. This, I've only just filled this today, cleaned it out and filled it. Powder rose, broad nib, and the ink is, I'm trying to remember, it is Sailor Studio 162. And you can see with the broad nib you're getting a lot more of the ink qualities and stuff showing through. Again, if you are like if you know about fountain pens and stuff, I do apologize that I'm telling you what you already know. Oh, siren. So this looks like a Safari, but it's actually a Lamy Luxe pen, similar to the All-Star. Basically, the Safaris have plastic bodies, the All-Stars have metallic bodies, and this is the Luxe, which is slightly more expensive. It has a matching clip colour, and it has a slightly different nib. I don't know if you can see that or if that is focusing, but the nib is, I'm going to compare it to this other black nib. Whoops! The studio lights are not really helping here, but this sort of has a line around the 2 tines of the nib. Anyways, basically, it costs more money. I do love this pen though. I love the way it writes. So as I said, it's a Lamy Luxe, but you spell it just LX. I don't know why. In gold, it also comes in like silver, rose gold, palladium might be one of the other colours, I'm not sure. And there's one that's kind of like a chocolatey metallic colour, which is not my thing, but it is a fine nib on here, and the ink is J. Urban. I'm not going to pronounce that because it's French and I'm atrocious at French, but it translates to Stormy Grey, which looks black at the moment, but is actually a very, very, very dark grey with gold shimmer, and I absolutely love it, and it basically is always in this pen. Then we have this year's special editions. There were 3. There is the violet, aquamarine, and there's also a mango as well, but I'm not a yellow girl, so I didn't get the mango as much as the completionist in me wants to get it. These have the same finish as the matte black, that sort of really matte finish, and they have the matching clip colour, which I wish they did on these, the matching clip colour. I really wish they did, but I love the feel of the matte ones so much more. When I purchased them, I purchased black nibs. They come with steel nibs. I purchased black nibs because I thought they would look better with black nibs. They're really easy to change, Lamy nibs. You just pull them off. Not difficult whatsoever, but as I said, I just thought they would look so much better with black nibs. So this is, oh, a little hard start there, the Lamy Safari Violet with a fine nib, and in here we have Diamine Bilberry. As you can see, I was very much matching my ink to my pen there. And then this one is the aquamarine with a medium nib. As you can see, that's a medium nib, but it kind of looks closer to the broad nib of the other one, but again, that can be down to the ink. This is Diamine, I'm just going to have to check. Oh yeah, Blue Peppermint, which is also a shimmery ink. I do love my shimmer inks. So yes, those are the well-known Lamys. There's lots of other options, as I said, ranging from about 15 to 20, apart from this one, which I can't remember the price off the top of my head, but it was more than that, quite a bit more. So I'm just going to skip over to these two here. These are both Parker pens, which seem to be the pen that a lot of people go for when they first buy a fountain pen, because it's a very well-known brand, especially in the UK. Now, as I said, I was using fountain pens since I was a kid from school, and then during my kind of teenage years and early 20s I wasn't using them, and this is the first one I bought when I got back into them in about 2014. This is a Parker Vector. It's fine. I don't get on with it that well, but it's fine. I find with these two Parkers, I'll talk about the other one as well in a minute, is they have sometimes a bit of a sweet spot, which kind of means you have to write at a very particular angle so it doesn't skip or break or whatever, or have a hard start. This one as well is a fine nib. I'll start writing it out actually rather than just putting the initials. And the ink is, I'm gonna have to check again, Diamine Tobacco Sunburst. But yeah, it's fine. It's just, if I had to choose, they're about the same price between a Parker Vector and a Lamy Safari. It would be the Lamy Safari every day, even though the shape of this pen is more my kind of thing. I don't know, it's got a very small nib, not that that's really a problem, but I generally like quite big nibs. That sounds rude. And it's not a very wet writer, and it's quite dry, and I prefer a wet writer, really. This one is a Parker Rialto. I may be saying that wrong. I think as well this is a fine. No, it's a medium. And this behaves pretty much exactly the same as the Vector. As you can see, the shape is very similar as well. I think it's got a nicer finish to it. It's probably like how there's a difference between the Safari and the Luxe. It's the same feed and basic pen. It's just got a slightly nicer frame to it, I suppose. This ink is Diamine Midnight. This one I haven't had that long. My mum found it in one of her desk drawers and she doesn't use it, and she knows what I'm like about fountain pens, so bless her, she gave it to me. I do like them, it's just that they're not my absolute favourites, but As I said, they are ones that people tend to go for when they don't really know about fountain pens, but they want to buy one. They just go Parker on Amazon and buy one. That's exactly what I did. So yeah, they're fine. I just don't use them that much. So next up, we are going to look at these guys, which are the cheap Chinese pens, for want of a better word. Most of these, the ones in the middle, are all Ginhouse pens. These and this one as well, this is a Hero. You can pick them up in places like eBay and AliExpress for a couple of £1 each. You've just got to wait for the long 6 weeks roughly shipping from China. You can find stockists in the UK or probably whatever country you're in. You just have to pay more for it to arrive sooner. So some of these I've ordered from China, and some of them, like this one and this one, I've just ordered from a UK stockist and paid £6 rather than £2 for them. This one's slightly different. It's a Moon Man. I'll talk about that in a sec. But the reason I got so many of these is because I had decided that I wanted to get a really good pen, you know, a really, really good pen. And these are so cheap that I thought I could use them to figure out what size pen, what weight pen, and what nib size I like the most. And from having these pens, I worked out that I like a medium nib and a slim light pen. So, you know, it was definitely worth the few pound I spent on all of these put together. But at the same time, all of them are, almost all of them are really, really good writers. So they are really worth getting, and you don't care about using a shimmery ink in them that might block it up or whatever, because they're so cheap it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, they're surprisingly good pens. And I know other people as well, they buy them and they stick different nibs on them. I haven't had any problems with my Ginhouse nibs, but you know, I could stick a better nib on there if I wanted to. But yeah, they're definitely worth getting one or two just to play around with and stuff. The Moon Man is a bit different. Chinese pen, but a little bit more costly, but it is much better quality. I do love this thing. But let's look at the Ginhouse first. So this one is probably one of the better known Ginhouse. It's the 450. This has a medium nib, but as you can see, it's a pretty wide and wet medium nib. What ink have I got in here? I have Diamine Jack Frost, which is a shimmering and sheening ink. I will make another video about inks in case you have no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, I do like this pen. I like the way it writes. It's just, for me, it's really heavy. I can't write with it posted. It's too heavy for me. And yeah, I can't write with it for long periods because, as I said, it's a bit heavy for my personal taste. I have stubby, small little hands. This one is very similar, just slightly smaller. This is the, I don't know why I keep switching between capitals and lowercase, I don't know, but this is the 750. This is also a medium nib. This currently has Diamine. Actually, this pretty much always has Diamine Moon Dust in, which is a super, super shimmery grey, but because of the body of the pen, that's why I put the super shimmery grey in there. Again, writes nicely. I just can't write with it for long periods because it doesn't post well. The cap falls off when you write with it, and it's a bit short for me otherwise, and again, a little bit towards the heavy end for me. This next one is probably my least favourite of the Ginhouse. This is a, hang on, it's a 992. I've got a list next to me over here, totally cheating. At the moment, I don't have an ink in here that I should have put in here. The ink in here is Sailor Manu Haha. I don't know how you're supposed to say it. And this is a really, really dry nib, so it's really not ideal. Oh, there's my cat. It's a really dry nib. It doesn't write very wet, so it's not great for this particular ink. So I'm just kind of trying to run it dry to put a new ink in there. I wrote Sailor Ink then because I can't talk and write at the same time. But I do like how light this pen is, and it was this one that made me think, I like light pens, I really, really do. These next two are the same. These are a Ginhouse 601, and I bought two because I just really, really liked them, and these are the ones that made me realise I love slim pens. So the first one, so Ginhouse, what did I say it was? A 601. These are fine nib pens. You can see the difference. That's a fine nib and that's a fine nib. The fine nib on this one is kind of like a fine 0.5, a fine medium, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, this ink is a mouthful. It is Noodlers Black Swan in Australian Roses. It is skipping a little bit in this pen. I don't know why. And as I said, this is exactly the same, just with a different finish. I'll just use up this last line here. 601. Fine nib. The ink is Diamine Cherry Sunburst. And we need a new sheet to go to this one, which is very, very similar to the 601s. This is the 165. It's just slightly heavier and has a matte finish. Again, with a fine nib, and this ink is, again, I don't know why I keep switching between upper and lower case, but there it is. Noodlers Georgia Peach. And the last of the really cheap Chinese ones is slightly different. This is a Hero. I love the colour of this pen. I really do, like the champagne-y pink with the gold. But the nib on this was atrocious. I mean, it was really, really bad. It skipped, it barely worked. I hated it. So I thought, as the pen itself was so cheap, I would do my first ever nib adjustment, and I basically just filed the nib down with an old nail file and kind of created my own stub nib. Anyway, what did I say this was? It is a 7038. I'll just say it is an adjusted nib, and this ink is Robert Oster Fire and Ice. Any weird noises you can hear, my cat is cleaning himself next to me right this second. So yeah, as I said, they're all really cheap, but I use them, I like them. Just great pens and such good prices. So this one is the Moon Man. It is beautiful. I love the colour of this. It has the gold, well, faux gold, obviously. Hardware. It is a really, really pretty pen. It is quite light as well. Has a pretty gold-plated nib. It is a fine nib, but it writes like an extra fine. Let me just write out here. So Moon Man is 3. Fine nib. I believe the ink is Scribble Purple, I think. Just as a side note, for those who don't know, there is a difference in nibs depending on whether they are pens made in the West, as it were, Germany, UK, America, Italy, etc., or whether they're made in China, Japan, kind of thing. But Ginhouse are an exception to that, because just don't see them as that kind of thing. Yeah, they just don't count on this. But generally speaking, the Japanese, Chinese, Eastern nibs, if you like, run smaller than the Western ones. So a Western, a German in this case, nib that's a fine nib would be a medium on a Japanese pen. So this one that has a fine nib is more like an extra fine in a Western pen, if that makes sense. And if you're a regular to the fountain pen world, you're just like, yeah, I know, shut up. Anyways, looking at some of the other random pens, we've already looked at you two. Just quickly, I have 3 here that are not inked. This is a cheap W.H. Smith pen I bought thinking, I'll just have a cheap pen. Why not? Wouldn't recommend. It's really rubbish. So if you buy a really, really cheap pen, I'm not saying it's not going to work, because look, this thing cost me £2.50 and this probably cost about the same, but don't let it put you off if it doesn't work. So yeah, I really should just throw that away. This one is a platinum with a G, so Platinum, different from the Japanese brand Platinum. This is a defunct, I think, British brand. I found this in the back of one of my dad's desk drawers. It had been completely neglected for years and years and years, and I cleaned it out. I bought special cartridges for it because it had proprietary cartridges, but it's still a pain to write with. You can hear how scratchy that is. But when it works, it writes beautifully, but it's just so I haven't had the heart to throw this away because, as I said, when it works, it's great. This guy here is a Noodlers Ahab, and so the Noodlers, there's different Noodlers pens, but the Ahab is a well-known, or the most well-known one. These have flex nibs, which mean I can flex the tines like this without ruining the pen. But it was fine when I first got it, but it has brought me so much grief and trouble. The ink dries out in it super quickly in this converter. The converter gets stuck. Sometimes I've had this converter come loose inside the pen. So when I was like, why is my pen not writing? I'll just open it out to ink splash everywhere. So I don't know, they're famous for being difficult. When it's freshly inked and the converter's actually fitted on there, it writes lovely, but it also, yes, it's a pain. So I don't have it inked at the moment because we've had a falling out. Anyways, these guys, let's start with these two. These are Kaweco Sports, another popular sort of lower end, cheaper pen, same kind of price as the Safari, maybe a little bit cheaper. I'm just going to need to find some black paper because I have one of these has white ink in. Guess which one? These are both Classic Sports. They have gold hardware, or faux gold, or gold plated hardware. I just like gold plated I like gold as a colour rather than steel. It's just a personal preference. So these are little pocket pens. They unscrew like so, and then you can post them like that, and then they're more of a normal pen size. I can't really imagine writing with it without putting the cap on. But yeah, they're really, really popular. They're super cute. They come in so many colours, more colours even than the Safari, and yeah, I love them. So yes, this is the first one I got. This is the Kaweco Sport in navy. Classic Sport, I should say. Has a fine nib, writes really well as you can see, and it has diamine aqua blue. Inside, the Kaweco converters though, a lot of people use cartridges with Kawecos because the converters are itty bitty teensy tiny, and some people don't like that because the ink won't last as long. I don't mind because I like changing my ink colour all the freaking time. So the next one, I have to get the black paper out. So this is the Kaweco Classic Sport. Oh, it's not writing very well at this very second. There we go. I hadn't written with it for a while, to be fair. So yeah, Kaweco Classic Sport in white, has a broad nib, which again, it could be down to the ink, but it doesn't write very broad for me, especially if you compare it to that Lamy broad there. I don't know, but the ink is the Atramentis document ink in, surprise, surprise, white. So yeah, I only have two of these guys. I do like them a lot, and even though I like small and light pens, these guys are so light that sometimes I find my hand starts to get a bit achy after a long writing session. So just something to be aware of. But they are very popular, especially in the planner world. And yeah, definitely worth giving a go at least. These two are other rescues from my dad's desk drawer. They probably had been sat unused for I'm talking decades. So they needed some intense cleaning to work. They're both the same. I think they're called Easy Changes. They're by Osmoroid, which again, I don't think the brand exists anymore. It's a UK brand, or was a UK brand. And yeah, I think they're called Easy Change because you used to be able to buy them like the different sections and change them out or something. I don't know, like more designed for calligraphy kind of thing. But yeah, once I clean them out, they use international standard cartridges, which means you can just put an international standard converter in them, and yeah, I just really like them. I like the way they write, but I don't know if you can get them anymore. But I think you can off eBay, but you can't get them new anymore. And I could even be wrong as to what they're called, but this is what I found with my little bit of Googling when I first found them. So the nib is called a soft medium nib. It writes a little bit like a stub nib. The ink in this one is one of my favourite brands. This has got Vinta Armada in. And then this one, exact same pen, just in a different colour. So Osmeroid. This has Vinta Sirena in. But yeah, I love these pens. I'm so glad I found them and cleaned them and put the effort into making them right again, because I use them all the time. Then these three, just in a little random category of their own. This is a Schaefer Star Wars Darth Vader pen, which I just had to get because I love Star Wars and I love Darth Vader. You can get all sorts. You can get Yoda, you can get R2-D2, you can, and I think the newer ones they've done like the latest Star Wars, so you can get a Kylo Ren if you like or whatever, but I had to get a Vader because Vader is my main man. They come with, I think, a medium nib as standard. I don't know if you can get different nibs on them. I always forget how to spell Schaefer. It's EA. And this pen always has a red ink in because it's a Vader pen, so it has to have a red ink because of Vader's lightsaber. And the moment and almost always it has J.R. Rouge Hematite, which is a glittery shimmery red, and I love it. To what extent Darth Vader would approve of glittery shimmery, I don't know. This next one is a TWSBI Eco. These guys are really, really popular these days. They are demonstrator pens, which means, you know, you can see through them. You cannot use cartridges with these guys. You can only use bottled ink because they are piston filled. As I said, they're really, really popular. They come in many colours. There's different ones. Obviously, I said this is an Eco. There's also the Eco T. There's a 580. There's lots and lots of different types. People really, really love them. I didn't get one for the longest time because I'm not that big a fan of demonstrators, which is like blasphemy in the fountain pen world, but well, I can't help it. I don't like them. But then they brought out the white and rose gold Eco, and I'm a sucker for rose gold and also FOMO because everyone was getting this pen, so I just had to get it, I'm afraid. And I do really, really like it. I probably will get another TWSBI at some point. I got a 1.1 stub on this, and it does occasionally skip a little bit. I think the tines maybe need a little bit of flossing or something. I usually just turn the piston a little bit and force some ink through if I need to, but I don't have any brass sheets to floss the nib or floss the tines, so that's why I haven't done it yet. So 1.1 stub does write nicely at the moment. It is behaving itself right now, and this has Diamine Phillip inside. The price range for Ecos is usually about £30, but the rose gold ones are more because, as I understand it, they tried to bring out rose gold a few years ago and it didn't stay on the nib. It like flaked or peeled off or something, so they had to figure out how to have rose gold on the nib and all the other hardware and stuff without it coming off, and they have, but there is a higher price point for it. So yeah, but if you just want to try out any other TWSBI, then obviously get a cheaper one rather than the rose gold. But yeah, I definitely would recommend, but obviously if you don't have cartridges lying around, or if you don't want to get into bottled ink yet, then don't get a TWSBI because you can't use cartridges with it. Okay, just 3 to go. We are nearing the end. The last 2 are my absolute favourites, so I'll probably talk about them a lot. But anyway, this is a Sailor 1911 Prophet with a Fude nib. Sailor 1911s are usually gold nib, higher end pens, but this one isn't, so don't get confused. It's a very classic cigar shaped pen with gold hardware, but has a slight difference in it has a Fude nib, which I do not know how well you can see, but is basically a bent nib. but on purpose. So depending on what angle you write, you can get different effects and things. So if I show you here, if I drop it, that works too. If I hold it really, really upright like this, I can get a really thin line, or I can hold it really flat and have no line at all. There it is. And get that really, really fat line. So I like to try and do foligraphy with this pen. It's kind of hard because it's actually a different way you would do it with something like a Tombow. But still, if I just give you an example here, I can go up like this and then down like this. Yeah, it's fun to play around with. I don't do long stretches of journaling or letter writing or anything with this pen. But as I said, it's fun to play around with. So yeah, Sailor 1911 Prophet with a Fude nib. There is different angles of Fude nibs that you can get. I'm not sure what this one is off the top of my head. This ink is Vinta, I think it's Vinta Perrier or Perrier, I don't know, I'm fairly sure, but yeah, I do like playing with this pen a lot. I usually, if I do, you can write the date with it in bigger letters, or if you're writing a letter, write the person's name or something. That's what I tend to do with it. Right, so 2 pens left, and these are my 2 favourites because they're the 2 most expensive. The first is my most recent pen acquisition, which is my Sailor Progear Slim. This is from the 4 Seasons collection, and this is the colour Haru Zora or Spring Sky. I don't know how well it will be showing up on camera. It's this beautiful blue colour, but it is also pearlescent as well. I love it. As you can see, it's a very small little pen, which is ideal for me. It has the beautiful Sailor logo there. I love it so much, and it has Sailor Japan, founded 1911, around the cap on the band there. I love it so much. Now, these special edition Progear Slims, as I understand it, only come with the medium fine. Yeah, the medium fine nibs, which isn't my ideal size, but it's quite nice to have a thinner one sometimes. So yes, this is the Sailor Progear 4 Seasons, and I will probably spell this wrong, but Haru Zora or Spring Sky. Now, you may have noticed that you can very much hear this nib writing. It's not scratchy when you write with it, not like this thing, which is scratchy AF. This is, they call it feedback. It's like the classic Sailor feedback. I don't know, it's hard to explain exactly what it feels like. It's almost like the feedback you get when writing with a pencil. But again, it's really hard to explain exactly what it's like. I did just skip there because I've just left it uncapped. But yeah, it's not scratchy. It's just feedbacky, but in a really nice way. And I was worried I wouldn't like it, but I actually kind of do. I haven't written out the full name of the ink, and it's not, I actually think it might have run out. Ah, yes, it's empty. That's why it's not writing. It's not that it's not a good pen. It's a very good pen, but it's run out of ink. But it writes beautifully. I love it. It's a beautiful pen, and it's so light, and I just love it. I do understand if you had bigger hands that this wouldn't be the best pen. There is the Progear normal size, but it is more money, as you can imagine. They also have the 1911 in standard and slim, which is similar size to this. It's just, you see how this has flat ends. The 1911 has the classic rounded cigar shaped ends, which is probably going to be my next big pen purchase, a 1911 slim. I don't want the regular size because I think it's going to be too big for me, but yes, in love with this pen. I haven't got it a proper pen holder yet, so it's just staying in its box because I'm afraid it can't go in with the rest of the riffraff. And the very last pen is my baby. This was a 30th birthday present in December. this is my baby. This is a Mont Blanc Meisterstück 144. They do not make this pen anymore. This pen in particular is from 1988, which means I won't be able to show it to you because it's teeny tiny, but there where my thumbnail is, it's actually stamped West Germany, which I think is pretty cool, just like a little piece of history. Obviously it's got the Mont Blanc snow cap on the top, and yeah, it's kind of like, it was one of these pens, this Ginhouse 601, that I realised I want a slim and light pen, and that's when I found this one to have as my, you know, special 30th birthday present. It's just, it cost a little bit more than these two. But yeah, it's my perfect pen. It has a medium nib, 14 karat nib. I should have said this one has a 14 karat gold nib on it as well. And it's my baby. I love it so very much. It writes like a dream. It's kind of hard to explain how the gold nib feels a little bit better when you write with it. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with these pens. They are fabulous pens and I love them and I use them all the time, but something just feels a little bit better with the gold nib as you write it. I can't explain what it is, and maybe it's just, you know, all in my head. I don't know, but I freaking love this pen. My handwriting is all over the place though. I don't like writing on camera, it just goes wrong. What ink do I have in here? I have Roshizuku Fusiogen. I probably am saying that wrong because my knowledge of Japanese is basically nothing, but yes, those two are the expensive pens. The Progear Slim, around 100-ish. I got mine on sale, so it was a little bit less than that, but the 144, I'm not 100% sure, but more than that. It's not going to cost you nearly as much as a new Meisterstück, like a 146 or a 149, which are like £500 to £600. It was not that amount of money at all, especially as I said, it's second hand from the 80s, but not exactly a beginner pen, I would say, but it is my baby and I love it lots, which is why it has its own very special pen case. There we go, that is my fountain pen collection. So I hope you enjoyed seeing it, and I hope that maybe the video was useful to you in showing you like what there is and what you can get for your money and so on and so forth. For me personally, for a starter pen, I would always recommend the Safari, but as I said, some people hate them and that's fine. It's, you know, down to personal preference. I wouldn't recommend the Parker because of the sweet spot issue. Ginhouse are great, but I've been very lucky with my Ginhouse in that they've, apart from that one, been pretty perfect, and from what I've heard from other people, they can be a bit hit and miss, so I don't know whether they're good for a starter pen or not, just in case. I don't want anyone to buy a pen, like a really cheap one, it turn out not to be good and then get put off for life, which is why I would go for something more reliable like a Safari or a Kaweco Sport maybe, or a TWSBI. The Schaefer is actually really reliable as well, so if you like Star Wars, there you go. They do other pens as well, by the way. Or there are a gazillion other pens out there. If you go on Cult Pens and just go to fountain pens and order like price low to high, you've got like 10 pages before you even hit £20, so. And just a last minute addition, which I completely forgotten to include because I never use them. If you want a real beginner thing, if you're really not sure but want to try something out, just unceremoniously shove these out the way. These are the Pilot V pens. I think they're called the Pilot Varsity in the States. They are non-refillable pens. They are fountain pens, but they're non-refillable. As I said, I never used them. I hadn't used them, and I am not exaggerating here, for about 5 years when I remembered their existence, found them in the back of a drawer, and they write straight away. Like not even the littlest bit of hesitation, just straight away after 5 years they wrote. So if you want to try out something, as I said, probably not the most economically friendly pens because they are just throwaway. There are ways of refilling them, but that's just a faff that I'm not going to get into. But yeah, I just suddenly remembered these and thought I would include them. They're a couple of £1 each if you want to try, if you just want to try the whole fountain pen thing out. As you can see, they write perfectly, but they're quite a washed out ink, so yeah. Right, let's go back to just, oh, that's upside down, that's going to annoy me. Just displaying this lot again, the Mont Blanc in there. Just pens. As you can see, I treat them all very, very well. Well, these two I do. But yeah, that is the collection. So thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will hopefully at some point do a separate video on my ink collection if you're just interested in seeing different types of ink and so on. If maybe you want maybe like a particular recommendation for a pen, then feel free to email me or message me on my Facebook page or something like that. I'm more than happy to help out. If you give me a budget or whatever, I can help you out, or like just with colours or anything like that. But yeah, I thought I would share in the hopes that it gives you some idea of what is out there and what there is to choose from and stuff like that. As I've already said, please let me know any questions, anything like that. I'm more than happy to answer and help out or whatever. I think it's about time that I shut up and go. Yes, pretty much it. I probably won't leave links to every single pen that I've shown you, but I will leave links to my favourite places to shop pens from. So check those out if you want to. Thanks again so much for watching. Please leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and I am going to go. Thanks again.